And good morning, it's Bear Woznick. We're coming to you from Little Harbor in an island called Jost Van Dyke in the British Virgin Islands on our sailing vessel, Spirit of Adventure. We're wrapping up our first ever retreat on our boat. We've had our guest, Deacon Kevin Cummings and his wife Mary, and our good friend John Schwartz and his son Luke, of course, and my wife Cindy. Been sailing for a week out here in the Virgin Islands with them, and there's something about when you it's something about the people out here. This is one of the greatest sailing areas in the world, and people from Croatia and Greece and even the San Juan Islands up in Washington State who come here, they say this is the best place to sail. What's interesting is so many people that sail, I'm just going to say things, I would say things like they are, right? So many, when you go to the nice fancy harbors on the mainland, or we like to call it the Painland, a lot of the boats are about pretentiousness, just to be real about it. Like, I have a successful business, I'm going to bring my clients out on my boat, show off how much money I have. But the people here are real special because most of the sailing that's going on here is about families and friends. Half the boats here are catamarans, half of them are monohulls like ours. Monohulls are, of course, more of a real sailing vessel. We can sail up into the wind and gain more speed. But the reason why people use catamarans is because they can have more family and friends on board. It's beautiful. This isn't about pretension about here. Out here it's about people living life on purpose and people stepping out of the box and people loving their family and friends. So I thought I'd share with you again today. I know I've neglected my morning man meditations. From my book, 12 Rules for Manliness, Where Have All the Cowboys Gone? Which, by the way, I was bumping around number 12 in popularity for Christian men's books, which is so cool. And I have a feeling that book is going to be an evergreen, that it'll be around for a long time, because right now men of every age are really looking to reestablish their identity as what it means to be a man. And you remember the word man in the Latin is vir, is where you get the word virtue. And so that's the kind of manliness that book talks about. And one of the chapters, the first, I go through 12 rules, and in the chapter when I go for the first rule, it's that every man's got to have a creed, a code he can live by. Excuse me, morning cup of coffee. Taken from Cooper Island here in the British Virgin Islands. And you can find out a lot about a man by the way he responds to adversity, but I'm going to say in this day and age, it seems like you can find out even more about a man in some ways and how he responds to a life of ease. I mean, 100 years ago, children, a good percentage of the children never made it to adulthood. They died young, and you really maybe didn't. You had to work hard just to. There was no telephone. There was no indoor plumbing. I mean, you were in the freezing cold in North Dakota. As I recall, going to my grandparents' house when I was a little kid, we had to go out into the outhouse, even in the snow. And so life was hard, really hard. And we think our life is hard now. And yeah, it probably is. But not like it was back in the day. In our relative life of ease in these days, how do we respond to that? Are we neglectful? Do we sit back? Or do we take the opportunity, because we maybe have a little bit more time or a little bit easier life, to spend more time pressing into our walk with the Lord, or looking for ways to serve each other? And the excerpt I was choosing from today from my book was where I talk about memento mori. Maybe you're familiar with that term. It means remember your death. I think if you're not remembering your death, you're not properly reflecting on your life. I mean, Jesus came to share the gospel, to share his teaching, to show us what a real human being should look like. But he also came with a purpose in mind, and that was his death on the cross. And you know this because he used the word telos in his words on the cross when he said, "It is finished," and he gave up his spirit, gave his spirit. to the Lord. That word, the word he used has the word telos in it, where it says it is finished. It's a philosophical Greek term that means, what is your personal end? What is your purpose? What is your true end? How did God make you? What is your personal telos? What is it that God made you uniquely, with your unique gifts and talents and abilities and limitations in who you are and the way he made you, spirit, soul, and body, and in your circumstances? What is your personal true end? I have one of our guests coming up here, I think, right now from our retreat. What is your, come on up, John. John Schwartz is here. Maybe we can say aloha to everybody, John. Maybe sneak a peek over here so I don't have to turn the camera and just say aloha while I'm doing this.
Aloha.
This is John Schwartz. He's a victim of one of our, no, he's a retreat. How's it been going this week?
It's been awesome. I told Baron, Cindy, Kevin, and Mary, it's probably one of the best weeks I've ever experienced in my life. It's just been good for the soul, refreshing, beautiful environment, beautiful people. The Lord President couldn't be much better.
And your son Luke?
Yes, Luke. He's having the time of his life.
Father-son retreat with Luke. We've pretty much, he's coming of age now. He's how old again?
He's 12.
He looks like he's 15.
Yeah.
We've loaded him with so many dad jokes that he's armed for life now. But I've been talking to them what we covered yesterday in the retreat. I think it was yesterday about memento mori.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we'll continue with that a little bit.
Okay.
You can share too. So when Jesus said it is finished, the word finished it has the root word telos in it, which means your true purpose. So Jesus came into the world to share the gospel, to show us what a real human is, but he also came to die his true end. He remembered his death, memento mori, and he even tells us to remember his death at the Mass, and of course his resurrection, because we say in Mass, dying he destroyed death, rising he restored our lives. So he restored life. So we also have to memento mori. We also have to remember our death. If we're not doing that, we're not living. Wasn't it Socrates that said the unexamined life is not worth living? How are you living your life? Are you living like you're going to die? Do you realize that St. Thomas à Kempis, I believe he was a Scandinavian monk, said that we all die kind of like sooner than we think. And then when we're gone, like the office we had, someone else takes that office, our car, our house, everything, we're forgotten, but not by the Lord, and probably not by those that really love us. But we have to realize that we're only reason why we have meaning is because we're made in God's image, and God really loves us. God loves us, and He has a plan. He has a purpose. He has a telos for us. So we were talking about how memento mori was what the early church fathers, the monks of the desert, actually. You think of the desert out in the eastern area in Greece, North Africa in particular. The time of the heavy persecution had ended, but the young men still wanted to live a martyr's life. Of course, the word martyr means witness. And they went out into the desert to pray, and actually with the purpose to defeat Satan in their prayers. There was a Saint Anthony of the desert that was known to have brutal physical encounters in defeating Satan. So much of their work was just, spiritual battle, prayer, real men. And they were ascetics. John, when was it in 2019 you fasted what was it you did in 2019?
Yeah, so 2021, it's kind of the one thing really changed in my life. So it was Lenten service, it was Ash Wednesday service, and I didn't know what I was going to give up for Lent that year. And the priest was talking about fasting and the power of fasting, and I was like 40 pounds heavier than I am today, and
all muscle,
and I was
muscle.
like, yeah, and I was like, I'm all in. kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to lose some weight, and I'm going to fast for God this Lent. And I did one meal. It's a 24-hour fast every day except for on Sunday. And during that time, that's when God really made his move, changed.
So every day you had one meal except for on Sundays, you would feast. So ascetic means athlete. And every athlete knows you are what you eat. And there's a real strength in fasting in that ascetic life. It's saying to your body, no, I'm in charge. And it's saying to your will, no, God's in charge. It's really surrendering your will to God, and it has power. And that's why Jesus said to his disciples, hey, when we try to cast out the demons, that they wouldn't go out. He said, this only comes out by prayer and fasting, because it's a real surrender of who you are. And so when these monks went out into the desert, they really were athletes for Christ. They were really, truly were ascetic, and they would fast, and they would read like did this morning. John probably did too, reading the liturgy of the hour, praying the Psalms. They had that habit even before Benedict codified it 150 years later to pray the Psalms. Many of them didn't have even a gospel in there. They might have had one gospel writing in their cave, and they lived in isolated caves. Caves are so cool they're so cool that when the knights came in the Crusades, they could make their headquarters. They could carve into this limestone rock. It was just soft enough where they could cut and make their own, own living quarters. Mary's home was like that. Carved out. There was a cave. They carved out deeper, and they used that rock that they carved to extend her walls out further. And of course, Saint Jerome wrote the Bible in a limestone cave next to, real close to Jesus' tomb. So they lived in these caves, and they may not have had they might have had a gospel, or maybe a part of the Psalms, or all of the Psalms. But what they all had in their cave with them was a skull, and the skull was meant to remind them, memento mori, remember your death. And when they would get together once a week, maybe, or once a month, when they would gather, they wouldn't really speak. They would say. They very didn't speak, but their greeting to each other was "Remember your death." And the derivation of that is from back in the day when a Roman general would maybe have gone up and defeated, an enemy. They would return to Rome with all of their captive slaves and their treasure, and they would come. They would leave the army was supposed to leave the general was supposed to leave his army on the other side of the Rubicon, and then he would come on, and they would hold a big parade, a ticker tape parade called the Triumph. As he rode on his horse, and everybody were yelling and screaming and praising him, there would be a slave, not a citizen but a slave, walking just behind him, kind of by the hindquarters of the horse. He would repeat constantly, memento mori, remember your death. In other words, keep this all. When we see people here, they're beautiful people, but for the most part, they're really all about family. But you see some of that where they're just like bigger, better, both, and it doesn't really doesn't fulfill them. And as Deacon Kevin was saying, some of the people out here are just adrift in their life. They don't have that remembrance of their own death. Man, it can come kind of so. I guess we've meandered on a little bit. You have anything else you want to say about memento mori?
No, I think you covered it really well. We're on Earth for a short period of time, and respect everything. So we just got to remember, we need to be ready.
And you're living your life like that, like with your son. You're just investing. And we'll show him a little bit over here. Maybe I don't think we can show him, but right over here, what did we do yesterday on that little spot of sand?
So Luke, he brought his football along, and he wanted the chance to play football on a sandy beach, and we either forgot the football during the day's trips, but yesterday was the day he's going to get to play football on this beautiful sandy island. And
how big is that island?
It's probably less than an acre.
It's about. He's a farmer. He knows acres.
So.
I've heard of acres. No, but it's about the size of a football field.
Yeah.
And there's only sand, and what else is on it?
And two palm trees.
And 2 palm trees.
And
actually, I think it's 3.
district.
And it's like the Trinity. So you guys.
So
play
he had a
catch.
nickname. He had a nickname. He was anticipating this island all day, the day prior, and he had a name for it before he even got there. It was going to be Football Island.
Yeah,
That's what
Football
we're gonna-
Island. And I told him that was a secret acronym from the FBI, FBI Island. But you guys played catch. It was
Yeah,
so cool to see.
yeah.
I did that a lot. My oldest son and I did a lot of that. My two younger sons weren't as interested, but Jeremiah and I would always do that. So let's show them a little bit, and then we'll sign off. See if I can do this without messing things up. So over here is, those are called rocks. There's a little bitty bar on this isolated island. There's only 300 people live on Joost van Dyke. We barbecued last night, right? Several boats here. And I'll see if I can show you this island. You won't see it, but it's way in the distance. You hear the generator below us because we're spoiled with air conditioning. But way over there is Sand Island. And this is our last full day for the retreatants. The retreatants? I hate to call it that. I always call it a meetup because I hate to think about retreating. Anyway, everybody, I kind of really love you guys, so we're going to be doing more of the morning man meditations. And for John Schwartz,
Yeah.
a manly farmer from Idaho, and others. Let's see, who's saying hi to me? I always cut it up so fast. I'm not sure, but I think it was Big Guns. Aloha, everybody. We'll be doing more and more of these morning man meditations. Love you guys. Memento mori. Aloha.